This video was paid for by my supporters on Patreon.
How many times do I have to explain to you conservatives that gender and biological sex aren't always the same? And who the hell cares if non-binary genders are legitimate in the eyes of random YouTubers? Transgender people are rejected by their friends and disowned by their families, assaulted by total strangers, and driven to commit suicide by the hate they endure. Their lives matter more than your opinion.
I never said that sex and gender are the same thing. If you actually watched the video before leaving this comment, you would know that. But having said that, gender and sex are not separate from each other. Your gender identity is as much tied to your biology as your skin color or the shape of your eyes. I cited numerous studies demonstrating not only physical differences in the brains of men and women, but also pointing out that in transgender individuals there are biological reasons for the disparity between their gender identity and their biological sex. Female to male transgender people have brains more similar to cisgender men, and male to female transgender people have brains more similar to cisgender women. So even in transgender people, their gender identity is biologically hardwired and is therefore not a social construct. Because to call something a social construct is to imply that gender identities are nothing more than a preference, with no real objective truth behind them. If gender is a social construct, then it's in the same bag as other social constructs, such as the practice of eating fast food or watching NASCAR. If you can simply choose your gender, then your decision to identify one way or another is no more worthy of respect than your choice of food or entertainment. Is that what you want? If we accept the premise that gender is a social construct and that gender identities are merely a performance, then there is no validity to the complaint that transgender people are oppressed, as you complain about, because they could avoid said oppression by simply choosing to not be transgender. That's obviously not the case because, as I pointed out, the gender identities of transgender people are determined by biological factors, so gender is not a social construct, and this substantiates the point of my video about there being fundamental differences between men and women. Do you get it? Also, I'm not a conservative. I don't identify as being part of the liberal conservative binary, which actually is a social construct, by the way. I'm just a person who appreciates the importance of science, the very same science which proves evolution, global warming, and that homosexuality is not a choice. I thought liberals like science, or is that only until it becomes inconvenient? Because if that's the case, then you're no better than the conservatives you seem to hate so much. Gender is not a social construct. Science doesn't care about your feelings or your ideological agenda. These are not my opinions, these are facts. Get over it.
So women are privileged because they're less likely to be murdered? I think you're just reaching at this point. If women think that them having periods is somehow a privilege, then this is definitely a privilege. No, what you are is uneducated and clearly don't understand what the word privilege means. Privilege is a special right. Women on average living longer, being less likely to be homeless, being less likely to be murdered. Those are not privileges. That's just how it has worked out. They're statistics, facts, not privileges. Women are less likely to be killed on a job because guess what? Men typically work more dangerous jobs. And that's not really a privilege because don't we live in an era where you can choose whatever job you want? Being able to make decisions about our own bodies also isn't a privilege, it's a right that we've been denied by our male ancestors who have always called the shots. Have you ever heard about male suffragers? No, because there's never been a need to have them. Because men have always had all the rights. That's why there are female suffragettes who fought and died for women's rights. Our country needs less hate and people to stand together in equality in the time that we're in. And we need people to be educated, and the facts are, this video is purely biased and is twisting all the information and is hateful towards women.
Oh, so you're saying the fact that men are more than 11 times more likely than women to die in the workplace is due to men's personal choices? Gee, I wonder what other workplace inequalities feminists like to complain about which are due to personal choices and therefore aren't valid complaints. I seem to remember there being something about women only getting 73% of something that men get, but I seem to be drawing a blank right now. Well, whatever it was, I'm sure acknowledging that different people get different outcomes based on different personal choices doesn't at all invalidate the narrative that all of the inequalities that exist between the genders are due to discrimination or some imaginary boogeyman called patriarchy keeping a particular class of people down. Oh, wait. Also, do you really want to talk about privileges as rights? Do you really want to go down that road? Because I could challenge you to name even a single legal right that men have which women don't, while I point out several that women have which men don't. Maybe you should just shut up and check your privilege, huh?
How can you say that's like okay for women to get less paid? It's not okay.
Are you stupid? I never said it's okay for women to get paid less than men. What I said is the reasons women get paid less than men on average have nothing to do with discrimination or patriarchy and everything to do with personal choice. I mean, what is this? Do you people deliberately misconstrue other people's arguments to give yourselves an excuse to be triggered and cry oppression and then bully them into silence with accusations of sexism? And you wonder why people are so fed up with feminists and SJWs. People like you are the reason Trump is in the White House.
You're a f***ing joke. These questions are what women have to deal with every day, and you're going to say it doesn't exist. You are selfish. Us women have to deal with everything men have. We have to cater to them. We have to give up things in our daily lives, but when we expect the same back, you sneer and joke.
First of all, you used the wrong "your." Second, you posted this comment on my video, 36 Stupid Feminist Questions Answered, where I responded to feminists complaining about stupid and trivial things like catcalling, manspreading, men not liking romantic comedies, jokes, and slut-shaming, which is done mostly by other women, by the way. Are those the things women have to deal with every day? Gee, how oppressed you are. Third, what could you possibly have to give up to cater to men? Your bodily integrity? You've never been asked to sign an agreement saying you'll go die in a war if the government tells you to just so you can get a driver's license or to qualify for federal aid or even citizenship. Your reproductive rights? Last I checked, abortion was still legal, so you have the right to opt out of parenthood, unlike men who are made legally responsible for children they want nothing to do with, and have to pay child support for them, even in cases where the mother got pregnant by stealing their sperm or even raping them. And you certainly aren't forced into being legally responsible for a child even after you've proved you aren't the biological parent, as happens to unwilling fathers in California. The sympathy you're granted by society by default? You've never been beaten up by a member of the opposite sex and had everybody laugh at you and assume you did something to deserve it, and then get told you're a monster because you dared to defend yourself. You've also never been treated by a public school teacher like you're defective for exhibiting normal girl behavior, and then put in a special ed class on behavior-altering drugs because the idea that gender is a social construct has pervaded our education system and conditioned our schools to erroneously see gender differences in behavior as abnormal, causing more and more kids of your gender to drop out of school and not bother seeking higher education with every generation. You don't live in constant fear that if anything goes wrong in your life and you end up losing your job or your home, you won't ever recover from it because nobody will have sympathy for you and will instead see you as a worthless bum. You also don't live in constant fear of being falsely accused of sexual harassment or rape and losing your reputation, job, college education, and home over it, even after you've been proven innocent. You also don't live in constant fear of other people seeing you as weak for having emotions or calling you cowardly or selfish if you dare object to the notion that you should be the one to sacrifice your life for the sake of the other sex. You don't live with the crushing depression that comes with a desperate need for companionship combined with a crippling fear of seeking affection caused by a lifetime of conditioning to derive your self-value from your ability to provide for other people, making you constantly doubt whether or not you are worthy or deserving of love and eventually leading to suicide in your 50s or 60s once you've realized your ability to work is diminished and you've finally lost all hope that you won't die alone. You've also never been told that you're privileged just because nobody catcalls you when you walk down the street, even though you wish they would just so you could feel a little bit less insecure about your short stature and thinning hair for a few seconds because, believe it or not, men have to live up to beauty standards too, among other things. And you're certainly not held accountable for the actions of other women which you have nothing to do with and are consequently banned from certain places and called an oppressor, and for whatever reason this isn't considered sexist. So tell me, what the f*** do you sacrifice every day for men? Your leg hair?
You are a f***ed up piece of period.
You are on your period. Also, stop liking your own comments.
Are you saying women don't work overtime? My sister once worked for 24 hours straight. Why? Because she wanted to. Say that again to my face.
I didn't say women don't work overtime. I said that women work less overtime than men on average. Average. Obviously there will be outliers, but that doesn't disprove a statistical average. Do you not understand what average means? Do you see how going out of your way to be recreationally offended makes you look like an idiot?
Can I kill him now?
Now you see, unlike Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn, when I get death threats, I can prove it.
WTF, this is so f***ing screwed up. F*** you, and I hope you die in a hole. But you cannot judge a girl by the questions they ask, bitch. And they weren't asking you specifically, they were asking men in general. Oh, and you're about you don't know any men who do this or that. It's probably because you have no friends because of how sexist you are, and how you complain about every other word a female says, and other men aren't gonna put up with that shit. Anyways, I hope you die in rotten hell for having so much disrespect for people because they are the weaker sex. They're not the same sex as you. See you, motherfucker. Respect women, one of them made you.
Alright, 8 things. 1. Why can't I judge a girl by the questions she asks? Why shouldn't I? 2. Yes, they did ask these questions of all men in general, and I am a man, so I answered them. What's the problem? Also, bitch is a gendered insult, you sexist. 3. I like how feminists are still trying to dismiss arguments and criticisms by calling them sexist. It hasn't worked so far, so what makes you think it's going to work now? 4. How do you know what other men are going to put up with? Excuse me, but did you make a video that resonated with so many people, and not just men but women too, that got over 7 million views and is, as of the time I'm writing this, the 5th most viewed video about feminism on all of YouTube? And just because I know some moron is going to jump at me for saying the fact that my video has 7 million views means everything I say is right, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you should take a look at the view count and the like to dislike ratio before you say nobody agrees with me and you make a fool of yourself. 5. Even if it were true that I don't have any friends, would that invalidate all of the statistical data and empirical facts that I presented? 6. So it's okay for the BuzzFeed feminists to say a bunch of disrespectful things about men, but when I point out the indisputable biological fact that women are physically weaker than men, that's crossing the line? It's almost like you're trying to prove my point about feminists having double standards. 7. A man also made me. You know, it takes a mother and a father to conceive a child. Why do feminists always seem to forget that? 8. I put a trigger warning at the beginning of the video. You should have heeded it. But instead, you chose to watch my video even knowing it was going to say things you didn't want to hear, so I don't accept your claim of being offended. What you're doing is putting on a performance. What you're really saying is, hey my fellow SJWs, look at how offended I am. Everybody give me pats on the back for calling out this guy for being sexist. I'm a good boy. It's called virtue signaling, and it makes me sick.
I get the point of this, but he was basing all this off himself, when we all know that most men would do this. Just because he's a nice guy doesn't mean everyone else is.
Yeah, everything I say in this video is based on my own experience. Except for all the statistics and articles I presented to back up my claims. I literally presented screenshots of these things, so the only way you couldn't have seen them is if you didn't watch the video, which you probably should have before you posted this comment because now you look like a willfully ignorant cretin.
Men's are stupid sex predators because they are allowed on men's only toilets. Hashtag fake feminist. Hashtag men's privilege.
You mean just like how women have women-only toilets? How is it a privilege for men to have our own bathrooms while women have theirs too? And how does men having our own bathrooms make us sex predators? Unless you're trying to say we have our own bathrooms because we're sex predators, and your English is just so bad that your sentence is structured completely backwards. Because if that is what you're saying, then that's just stupid. Also, before you start tweeting hashtag bad grammar shaming, I'm not making fun of you for not knowing how to speak English properly, but maybe if you can't speak the language, you should stay out of the discussion, because if you can't understand what I'm saying and I can't understand what you're saying, then there's not much point in you being here, now is there?
This is and you're a mate, coming from a man.
That's not an argument. Also, why do you feel the need to point out your gender as if that somehow makes your comment more meaningful? Are you saying a woman's opinion is less valuable? And what's wrong with What are you, a sexist?
I do not see you working in the military or on a farm. You spent more than half an hour talking. Oh, and also this was men, not one man. I do not care how many facts you have. It is your opinion. These questions are from men, not one man. I bet if you ask 100 men, none of them would say what you said.
I do not care how many facts you have. It is your opinion. I do not care how many facts you have. It is your opinion. I do not care how many facts you have. It is your opinion. I do not care how many facts you have. It is your... You know what? F it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and watch my other videos. And be sure to support me on Patreon because this video will probably get demonetized.